So in the last session, we discussed about calendar, currency, and chart of accounts. Okay, we discussed about calendar, currency, chart of accounts. With the help of calendar, currency, chart of accounts, we can record the transactions in the application. Whenever you record the transactions, we need three: calendar, currency, chart of accounts. If you look at these three components, every component is starting with a C. Calendar is starting with a C, currency is starting with a C, chart of account also starting with a C. So instead of saying we need calendar, currency, chart of accounts, simply you can say to record the transaction, we need three C's. Okay, we need three C's. To record the transactions, we need calendar, currency, chart of accounts. So instead of saying this, you can say we need three C's. Three C's means calendar, currency, chart of accounts. With the help of three C's, we can record the transactions in the system. To record the transaction in the system by using the three C's, what we can do is by grouping these three C's, we can create the primary ledger. Okay, by selecting calendar, currency, chart of accounts, we can create primary ledger. Call it as PL. By using calendar, currency, chart of accounts, we can create primary ledger. If you create the primary ledger by selecting this calendar and currency chart of accounts, you can create the transactions only in the general ledger application, only in the GL. Okay, if you create the transactions, if you create the primary ledger by selecting calendar, currency, chart of accounts, okay, you can create the transactions only in the general ledger application. But we have many other applications. If you want to record the transactions in all the applications along with this calendar, currency, chart of accounts, we have to include one more component. So primary ledger. Okay, you can create the primary ledger by using these three components. If you create the primary ledger by using these three components, you can use the primary ledger to record the transactions only in the general ledger application. If you want to use this primary ledger to record the transactions in subledger applications, other than GL, all applications we call as subledger applications. If you want to create the transactions in the subledger applications also along with the GL application, we have to use one more component called as accounting method. Okay, accounting method. We know what is the purpose of calendar. With the calendar, we can capture the date. With the currency, we can specify the amounts or belongs to what. And with the chart of accounts, you can provide the description of the transaction. What about accounting method? When you create the accounting entries in subledger applications like payables, receivables, fixed assets, cash management, inventory, take any application other than GL, in all the applications when you create the transactions, how that accounting should takes place, within this accounting method you can have a rules. Okay, within the accounting method we can have a rules how system has to create the accounting entries. Say for example, if in payables, if you create invoice, which accounting system has to generate? If you create the payment, which accounting system has to generate automatically? Those details you can find in the accounting method. We'll discuss and understand about accounting method when you are working on the payables application. For now, take the simple point as within the accounting method, we can have a accounting rules to create the accounting entries in the subledger applications. Now, if you look at the primary ledger, along with this three C's, other component called as accounting method. Okay, these are the three C's. This is the additional one. Total we have four. What Oracle says is already we are calling these three are three C's since three are starting with the C, and from accounting method consider the second letter called as C. Okay, consider second letter called as C. Now this you can say 4 C's. If you create the primary ledger with the 4 C's, calendar, currency, chart of accounts, and accounting method. In accounting method, second letter you have to use as a C. By using these 4 C's, if you create the primary ledger, that primary ledger you can use in any application to record the transactions. So this is a point we have to understand. The same accounting method we call as subledger accounting method also. Subledger accounting method. This accounting method we can use only in the subledger applications. That is the reason we call as subledger accounting method. For this accounting method, we have a technical term called as conversions. Don't think because we have a technical term called as conversion for that. That is the reason that we are calling as 4th C. No, you can clearly see in Oracle documentation also. We have to call it as accounting method. From accounting method only, we are considering this C. Okay, these are the points we have to understand about it. So accounting we will understand very soon. For now, you can take the simple point as okay. Accounting method consists of rules to create accounting entries in the subledger applications. What are those rules? How it will work when we are working on the application? We'll see. For now, take the simple point as if you create the primary ledger with these three components, calendar, currency, chart of accounts, you can create the transactions in the GL. If you create the primary ledger with these four components, you can create the transactions in any application. This is the point we have to understand. Any questions on this point from anyone, please?
Lakshman, can you explain a difference really between the primary ledger and subledger, as I don't really have much of a finance background?
One second. These points we are discussing. See, you already attended for P2P and O2C cycle, right?
No, I've started from yesterday. I have just completed first class. I still have to complete the second class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Primary ledger means which we can use to record the transactions in any application. Okay, primary ledger. Subledger means application name other than GL. Okay, we have applications GL, AP, AR, CM, FA, many other applications we have. So other than GL, all applications we call as subledger application. Please go through the second session which already we discussed as a P2P and O2C. Still if you have any doubt, we'll discuss. Otherwise, we have to discuss a lot of information to understand that.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Please go through the second session. After going through that second session also, still if you are not able to find out the difference, we'll discuss.
Sure, no problem.
Subledger means subledger applications. Okay. Other than GL, all other applications we call as subledger applications. Primary ledger is the one which we require in all the applications to record the transactions. The calendar, currency, chart of account, accounting method, all will consist of this primary ledger. Primary ledger consists of these components. So any questions here, please? Right, no questions. Okay. So that means we need primary ledger to record the transactions in the applications. Now let's take simple case. If you are going to do the implementation for any company, if you are going to do the fusion applications for implementation for any company, how the data need to be classified. Okay, how the data need to be classified, we'll see. First, we have to classify the entire organization data into 4 data classifications. One is employees data. Okay, in the system we have to maintain employees data separately. The other classification of data is registration data. Okay, the registration data we have to maintain in the system separately, and the core business transactions data. Business transaction. Day to day, what are the transactions the organization does, those details we have to maintain separately. Along with that, stock information, okay, or say inventory, or say material stock or inventory or items, anything you can call. So this is how organization data need to be classified in the system. So when you are going to do the implementation for any company, so within our Fusion applications, we have to maintain employees data separately, registration data separately, business transactions data separately, and stock or inventory related data separately. To maintain employees data separately in the system, we have one concept called as enterprise. Okay. By using enterprise concept, we can maintain the employees information separately. Within the enterprise, we can maintain the employees information. How we can maintain the company registration information in the system? By using the concept called as legal entity. LE. By using the legal entity concept, we can maintain company registration information in the system. Say there is one organization. To run that organization, they have only one registration. So in that case, we'll create one legal entity. We'll discuss how many we require. First, let's take the point how the reality can be taken into the system. To maintain the organization, okay, the company employees information in the system. In the system, we have to create the enterprise. With the concept called as enterprise, you can maintain the employees data in the system. So when you are running the company, you should have a registration. The registration information you can maintain in the system with the concept called as legal entity. Okay, what are the registration you have for your company that you have to create in the system as a legal entity? And to record your day-to-day business transaction, what are the transactions you perform in your purchasing department, sales department, payables department, receivables department, all those transactions, if you want to record in the system, by using the concept called as business unit, you can record. In short, we call as BU. Okay. By using the business unit concept, we can record the business transactions in the system. And to maintain the stock, what is the material we have in the organization within the warehouse, or you can call as stock or item, okay, or say inventory related information. To maintain in the system, we have to create inventory organization. Okay, so this is how we have to create in the system to maintain the relevant data which is related to business. To maintain the employees information, we have to create enterprise. Within the enterprise, you can maintain the employees information. To maintain the company registration information, you have to create the legal entity in the system. And to record the business transactions in the system environment, we have to create the business unit. To maintain the stock, we have to create the inventory organization. Okay, let's look into these points on what base we create all this. How many we have to create. Fine. So enterprise. The employees are belongs to which organization. With that organization name, you can create the enterprise. Okay, the employees are belongs to which organization. For that organization, we create an enterprise. If you want to maintain, okay, if you want to maintain this employees information with the concept called as enterprise, we have to use the applications. We use the applications called as HCM applications. Okay, to maintain the employee information, we have to create the enterprise in the system. By using the enterprise, when we are going to maintain the employees information in the system, we use the applications called as HCM, Human Capital Management. Employees information you can maintain with the help of HCM applications with the concept called as enterprise. Within the HCM, you can have a different applications. HR application, okay, okay, human resource, payroll applications, different applications you can have in the HCM. And when you talk about registration, okay, when you talk about registration, so you are running the company. When you are running the company, you may have single registration or multiple registrations. How many registrations you have in your company? Those many legal entities we have to create in the system. Say you are running the business in US. When you are running the business in US, so minimum for one country, you may run one business or multiple businesses. If you are running the businesses, one or multiple in single country, one registration is enough. If you have a one registration in the system, you have to create one legal entity. Say you are running the business in US and you have a two separate registrations. Maybe you might be running two different businesses. In one country, you might be running the two different businesses, two different type of businesses. For each business, you may have a separate registration, or else you can have a single registration also. In one country, it could be one business or multiple type of businesses. One registration is enough. So that means how many registrations you have, those many legal entities you have to create in the system. Okay, how many legal entities you have to create in the system, that always depends on how many registrations you have in your business. So accordingly, you can create the legal entities. What does it mean by business unit? Where you record the business transactions. Say for example, you are running the business. When you talk about where we record the business transaction, to operate the business, every organization will have a branches or outlets. Say for example, the client is running the business in the locations called as Dallas and Austin. So these are the two cities where the client is operating the business. So when they are recording, when they are performing, when they are doing the business in the Dallas locations, here they'll do various business transactions. Those could be related to purchases, payments, sales. In the same way, Austin also, since they have a two branches, one is in the Dallas or one is in the Austin. So in each and every branch or outlet or unit, they record the day-to-day business transactions. When they perform the business in the two different locations, how much expense they are spending, how much revenue they are generating, accordingly they have to produce the reports branch wise. So to facilitate the same in the system environment, the each branch, whatever they have as per their business, simply in the system we create as a business unit. Okay. So when they are running the business, if they have a 10 branches as per their business, simply we create 10 business units in the system, so that branch wise you can record the transactions separately. One branch data cannot see other branch. That's how you can have a security. And whatever the expense you are spending in each and every branch, you can track separately with the business unit concept, and how much revenue you are generating the branch wise, that also you can capture. And finally, reports also you will be able to generate branch wise. The reality, the business unit only we take as a company into chart of accounts. Okay, say you have a 10 branches. If you have a 10 branches in the system, we create 10 business units. The 10 business units only we take into our chart of accounts as a 10 company. Reality, company may be one, but the company is operating in how many locations, as how many branches, accordingly we have to create the business units. If you have a 10 branches, we create 10 business units. So branch wise means business unit wise we record the business transactions. In our chart of accounts, the segments whatever we create as a company, in the last session we discussed, the mandatory segments are two. Those are company and account. When you say company, your company may be one, but to record the transactions detail level which are related to that company, how many branches we have, those many business units we create, how many business units we have, those are equal to your branches, those many companies we have to create in the system. So that's how we have to finalize how many business units are required. Okay. So when you talk about enterprises, all the employees will belongs to one company, one entity. So all will create in one enterprise only. And when you talk about registrations, how many registrations you have to run your business, those many legal entities we have to create. Ideally in one country, one registration is enough. That means one legal entity is enough. As per your business, if you have more than one registration, you have to create more than one legal entity. That means how many registrations you have, those many legal entities. And wherever you are operating your business, okay, those ideally you operate as a branches or outlets. How many branches you are operating the business, those many business units you have to create in the system so that you can track the transactions separately. And to maintain the stock and all, how many warehouses we have, those many inventory organizations you have to create. So when you are running the business in 10 locations as a 10 business units, you may have a 5 warehouses, 10 warehouses, 20 warehouses. It's very simple. How many warehouses you have as per your real business, those many warehouses we have to create in the system as an inventory organization. Okay, this is the point we have to understand. So enterprise means to maintain the employee information. With the help of HCM applications, you can maintain the employees information. When you talk about legal entity level, we use cash management application. The cash management will be owning the bank accounts. We discussed as per P2P and O2C cycles. So legal entity, okay, the company registration, okay, the company registration is owning which how many bank accounts and all we have to specify in the system. That is reason the legal entity is mapped to the cash management application, or you can say CE. And business units, so where real business transaction we record the applications like AP, AR, and purchasing application, order management application. We have like many other applications like project costing, project billing. This is how we have many applications. All these application related transactions we record at business unit level. All these applications means all these are the departments: payables department, receivables department, purchasing, sales. For each department we have a separate application. The department specific activities we have to record within the business. Say for example, we are running the business in dollars. The dollars you'll have a different departments. Sorry. In the dollars location, in the dollars branch, you'll have a payables department. What are the activities payables department is doing? Okay, you'll have a AP application, accounts payables. In the dollars branch, if you are doing the sales activities, you'll have a order management application. Okay, to identify this dollars branch in the system, we'll use the concept called as business unit. That means, so in all these applications, when we are recording the transactions, we record the transactions by selecting the business unit. The business unit is nothing but where you are operating the business, the branch or outlet or something else, what you call as per your business. The same way, so inventory organization. So for inventory organizations, to track the transactions, we use inventory application. Okay, there are a few other applications also, but not required for us. So these are the points we have to understand. Any questions on these points, please?
Hello, I have a question. Like, actually, I have an understanding. So just tell me whether I understood it correctly
No,
or
no,
not.
no. Go ahead. Go
So,
ahead with your question.
okay. So business transaction data in BU, if we have 10 branches, so we will create 10 business units
Correct.
and 10 companies also, right?
Exactly. Exactly. The number of business units. See, the
And
number of branches. Simple. Your branches where you are operating. Okay. The number is equal to your business units. BU means business units. The number of business units would be equal
right.
to number of companies what you are going to create within our chart of account. That's all.
Okay.
This is very
So
general practice.
each business, yes, yes. So each business unit will also have each APAR PO
Exactly.
applications
Yes.
separately.
Yes. That's true. See, you are running the business in the dollars. Dollars branch will have a
Yes,
separate branch, separate departments, right?
right.
Right. In the same way, dollars for dollars we are creating one business unit. In the dollars
Okay,
location, what are the what are the departments you are operating? For all those, will have a separate applications. Correct. Every BU
okay,
will have a
okay. Thank.
separate payables, receivables applications. What are the business functions? What are the business operation activities they are doing? Accordingly, we'll have a applications. That's all. Say, take example,
Okay.
Dallas and Austin. In Dallas, you are doing only sales only. Okay, in Dallas, we are doing only sales. In case of sales and billing, you will have only order management and receivables application. So in Austin, you are doing sales and purchases. So accordingly, you will have a respective department in Austin. Based for each department, we will have a separate application.
Okay.
Fine. Any other questions?
Okay, clear. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, sir. Is there any other module which is mapped on legal entity level?
So legal entity level, only cash management. No other application. That too, why? Whenever you create the bank account in the system, the bank account is owned by which company you have to specify. Which company means which organization here. Organization can be identified with registration. Registration is nothing but legal entity. If I create one bank account, if I say the bank account belongs to so and so legal entity, that means that bank account belongs to which entity, which registered entity, system will understand. We don't map any other applications at legal entity level, only cash management.
Or sir, fixed asset?
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. That is other points. Okay, those are the other points. I am going to add that. First, we'll discuss this. We have a primary ledger, right? When primary ledger will come into the picture, those points will be added.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. I think maybe you mentioned a little bit, maybe we'll come later.
Yeah.
But for example,
the direct question.
I'm taking one example as a Walmart. Walmart, when they started, basically they just they did the registration, and for example New York, and they started business in all over USA, and each location they will have a separate business unit.
Correct.
But
Each
the
outlet.
entity, is that right? Can I say like that?
Correct. If how many outlets they have for each outlet, if they are going to implement Oracle Fusion applications, they'll create separate business unit.
So the legal entity is mother of all. Basically,
Correct.
it's
Exactly.
primary business. Okay.
Yes. See, and one more point. If they are registering that Walmart, okay, when they are doing the business in the US, if they are going with a separate registration state-wise, for example, they'll have a separate legal entities for the respective business units which they are going to have within the state of different cities. Or else, if they go with one registration to operate the business in the entire country, only legal entity would be one. Generally, companies will go with a single registration, one company.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, please?
Is other submodules like purchasing and receivables, payables, those things will have their own units, or it's all one business unit, and then
one business unit, that one business unit, one branch only, what activities they are doing, accordingly they'll have a specific application.
Okay, so purchasing level they cannot have multiple units, right? That's how it is in the Fusion.
Multiple units they can have. See here, purchasing activities they are doing in the Dallas and Austin.
Okay.
Application here also will have purchasing application.
But Dallas and Austin are GL units, different GL units, right? Means like the main business unit. So within that business unit, we cannot have multiple purchasing units.
Repeat your question.
So, for example, my question is that, let us say Dallas has a business unit BU001, or
yeah, you call it as Dallas BU. Just directly you can call it.
Okay, Dallas BU. So Dallas BU has, for example, two sub branches which has purchasing practices. Can they maintain different BUs for both of those sub branches of Dallas?
Yeah. Within the Dallas, if you have two sub branches, instead of taking Dallas as a business unit, those branches, the sub branches only will take as a BUs. That's very important.
Okay.
Yeah. So In the
So
dollars,
for
say they are
yeah,
operating the business in
got it.
locations, 3 locations. Within the dollars, in 3 areas, they are operating the business. In that case, you don't take dollars as a BU. Take those 3 as a separate BU. Where real business transaction is taking place, where real business is happening, that take as a business unit, so that you can track the transactions accordingly.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions here, please? Right. No questions. And one more point already we discussed, to record the business transactions in the system. Okay, to record the business transactions in the system, we have to create primary ledger in the system, right? So we'll take that point. Now, if you want to record the transactions in the system, we require primary ledger, PL. Okay. If you want to record the transactions related to employees, enterprise means employees. It may be the transaction may be related to employee payrolls, or the transaction may be related to legal tax reporting, etc. Or the transaction may be belongs to business unit in any one of the application. A transaction maybe belongs to inventory related transaction. You need date, description, and currency specifications and all. Those all you can have within the primary ledger. That is the reason primary ledger also be required along with these components. So the primary ledger level, you can map the applications like GL and FA application, fixed assets. Okay, when we are going to record the transaction, the GL, general ledger application, the transactions what we record will record which are specific to primary ledger. In the same way, in the fixed assets, when we are going to create assets, we'll create assets based on the primary ledger. Okay, so the fixed assets we don't maintain business unit wise. That's how we have a solution. Reality that should be maintained business unit wise only, but as per the solution, so we don't maintain the assets business unit wise, and we'll maintain the assets as per ledger wise we maintain. So these are the points we have to understand. Okay, enterprise, where we can maintain the employees information, and by using HCM applications you can maintain the employees information with the concept called as enterprise. And we have a primary ledger to record the transactions in any applications. In any application, if you want to record the transactions, we need primary ledger. Primary ledger level, we use the applications called as GL and FA. How really we use and all those points you can understand when you see in the system environment. Okay, here for now, just try to understand just this point, what level we can maintain the primary ledger. And legal entity, it is nothing but company registrations. How many registrations we have, those many legal entities we have to create in the system. And the legal entity level, we can have a cash management application. To record the day-to-day core business transactions, we have to create the business unit in the system. How we can decide how many business units are required and how many locations or how many branches you have a business. Accordingly, you have to create business units. So if you have a 10 branches, you have to create 10 business units. Then you have to create the 10 business units as a 10 companies in the chart of accounts, so that when you are recording the transaction belongs to which business unit you can select with a concept called as companies. In reality, your company may be one, but how many branches you have, those many you have to create as a companies in the system. And when you talk about inventory organizations, stock, how much stock, okay, what is the inventory or warehouses, how many you have in your company. So for that, you have to create the separate inventory organizations. If you have a 10 warehouses as per your business, you have to create 10 inventory organizations. We have to create one additional one also that we'll discuss in the system process once we start working on it, why that is required, how we can use that. Those points we'll discuss. For now, simple point you can take, how many warehouses they have, those many inventory organizations we have to create. Within the inventory organization, we maintain the stock and will perform the inventory related transaction. Those all you can manage with the application called as inventory application. So these are the points we have to understand. How many enterprises we have to create for every company? If you are doing the implementation, only one. For one client, only one warehouse. Oh, sorry, one enterprise. How many primary ledgers we have to create? Reality, Okay, one for country. One country, one primary ledger is enough. Okay, one country, one primary ledger is enough. Say you are doing the implementation for one client in 2 countries. For each country, you have to create the separate primary ledger. Why we have to create the separate primary ledger for each country? Any reason you can guess?
Currencies.
Currency, that's it. Say a client is
Currency rate.
client is operating the business in India and US. Think for India and US calendars are same. Reality no, but let's take the simple case. For 2 countries, calendars can be same. Some countries. Calendars can be same. You may use a chart of accounts also same, but currency is different. Because currency is different, we have to maintain the separate ledgers for each country. Okay, that's very important point. So if client is operating the business in 10 countries, if client is operating the business in 10 countries, for each country we have to create the separate primary ledger. That is the point you have to understand. If client is operating the business in 10 countries, how many enterprises we require? Only one. The 10 countries business belongs to same enterprise, the same organization. Countries may be different, that everything is owned by one client only. That is the reason the client may operate the business in one country or 100 countries, enterprise is only one. If client is operating the business in 100 countries, 100 primary ledgers are required. For each country, minimum one primary ledger is required. Okay. In one country, if client is doing the 2 different businesses, or 10 different businesses also, one primary ledger is enough. If they want to maintain separate primary ledger business wise, yes, they can do it, but reality not required. So for one country, one primary ledger is enough. How many legal entries are required if client is operating the business in 10 countries? Anyone? Client is running the business in 10 countries. How many countries?
It's maybe different, right? Registration, they can have one registration. If they want to maintain different also, they can.
Correct. That means it totally depends on how many registrations they have across 10 countries, those many legal entities. That's all. So you cannot say directly 10 countries, 10 legal entities. No. In some countries, they may have a multiple registrations if they want to go separate registration with the different businesses in the same country. That is the reason always the legal entities always depends on number of registrations. That is a very important point. Okay. Country, if client is running the business in 2 countries, how many registrations, how many legal entities we have to create? Directly you cannot answer. You have to ask the question, okay, client is running the business in 2 countries, but tell me how many registrations they have in the 2 countries. Okay, they cannot, no one can say they are running the business in 2 countries, but they have 1 registration. That you cannot, no one can accept. Each country separate registration is required. Okay, 2 countries means minimum 2 would be there. As per their business, there could be more than one in each country. So that is the reason how many legal entities we have to create in the system, that always depends how many registrations they have as per their business in one or multiple countries. That is a point. So when we create the business units in the system, I'll say client is running the business in 5 countries. In 5 countries, client is running the business. Tell me how many business units are required. Or say, if client is running the business in 5 countries, how many business units are required? If client is running the business unit in 1 country, how many business units are required? In case of one,
It depends on how many branches the company has in the country.
yeah. Here the very important point is doesn't matter how many countries. It doesn't matter how many countries. The simple point is let them run the business in 1 country or 100 countries. The simple point is how many branches they have in 1 or multiple countries. Based on that value, you have to decide how many business units are required. How many inventory organizations we have to create in the system when you do the implementation. How many warehouses they have as per reality. The physical warehouses, how many they have. Those many inventory organizations we have to create. These are the key points which you have to understand to decide how many we have to create when we do the implementation. So in one way, we don't finalize all this. We'll sit with the client and we'll discuss. Then only we'll finalize how many primary ledger, legal entities, business units and all. As a consultant, these are the key points we have to understand. on what base these can be derived to create in the system. How many enterprises? Only one. The business may be in one country or 100 countries, only one enterprise. How many primary ledgers? For each country, one primary ledger. How many legal entities? How many registrations they have? Those many legal entities. How many business unit? How many branches they have? Those many business units. How many inventory organizations? How many warehouses they have? Those many business units. Those many inventory organizations. Now let's talk about business units. It's a very, very important point. Business unit, BU. What is the benefit of business unit? With a business unit, you can record the transactions separately and you can have a data security. Okay. Data security, and you can have a reporting separately, and you can have a controls in the business process. So these are the primary reasons why we go with the business unit. Now I'll take simple example. So client is operating business in two locations. So location 1 and 2, or else you take locations like Dallas. One location is Dallas, other one is Austin only. Now definitely client has to maintain transactions separately. What are the transactions? What are the purchases? What are the sales in dollars? What are the purchases and what are the sales in the Austin? And security. What are the data transactions they are creating in the dollars that should not be accessed by Austin people? What are the data they have for Austin business transaction that should not be accessed by dollars? That means we have to maintain the data security between these two locations. And you have to produce the report separately. How much business done by Dallas branch and how much business done by Austin. In the same way, controls. Whenever they are recording the transaction in the system, how system should support when they are recording the transactions. Accordingly, you have to set the controls. What are the controls and all you will see in the system and you will understand. That means the business unit concept will enable these features. Okay, it will facilitate in the system environment to maintain the transactions separately, and it will provide the data security where one branch cannot access other branch data, and you can produce the report separately. You can have a controls when you are recording the transactions in the specific. Now your client is saying, I don't bother about the transaction is happened in the Dallas or Austin, and I don't bother about if Austin data is going to be accessed by Dallas people and Dallas data is if Austin data is going to be accessed by Dallas, and I don't bother about when I perform the report the transactions or the business is done by Austin or Dallas, and I don't bother about separate controls for Austin or Dallas. In this case, do you have to create separate business units for Dallas and Austin, or you have to create single business unit? You tell me, we have to create separate business units or one business unit for Austin and Dallas? Anyone, please?
Separate.
Separate why? Separate why? If they want to track the transactions separately, Dallas and Austin, if they want to maintain the data security separately, and if they want to produce the report separately, and if they want to control separately, we can have a business unit. But client is saying, I don't worry about the transactions are belongs to Dallas or Austin. I don't worry about the security between these two. Reporting, I don't bother about the transactions. The business belongs to Dallas or Austin. They are not worrying about it belongs to Dallas or Austin. In that case, you can have only one business unit for both. If they want to track separately, then only we have to create separate business units. Okay. So they want to record the transaction belongs to Dallas or Austin. Then we need separate business unit. But they are saying we don't want to segregate. The transaction belongs to Austin or Dallas. Just we want to record. It maybe belongs to Austin or Dallas. We don't want to specify that it belongs to Austin or Dallas. Okay, they want to prepare the reports where they don't want to worry about the reports are belongs to Austin or Dallas. In that case, one business unit is enough, because they don't want to segregate. Even if they do the transaction in the Dallas or Austin, they'll create as the same. Okay. So if they want to maintain the data, if they want to track the data separately, and if they want to produce the reports Dallas and Austin wise separately, then only you have to create for Austin and Dallas separate business unit. Otherwise, you may create business unit as, okay, say maybe just you may give the name as D and A, Dallas and Austin business unit. You may have a transaction with the Dallas, we will record within this business unit. You may have a transaction within this Austin, you can create the transaction within this. And when you are creating the transactions within this business unit related to Dallas or Austin, you cannot identify how much business you did in the Austin, how much business you did in the Dallas. You cannot do that. But okay, you cannot do that. So that is the reason ideally companies, every company will go with a separate business unit. Just I am taking one case for your understanding. Okay. So reality, every company will go with a separate business units with a separate city related or each and every branch what they are going to have in the business. Okay, this is the point we have to understand. And one more point is, when company is running the business, okay, when company is going to run the business, one second. When company is going to operate the business, so apart from this, they can have concept called as division. Okay. So division level, we cannot record the transactions and there won't be any applications to map. Not applicable, no applications. If any company wants to have a division concept, how many divisions they can have? It's very simple. How you can have a division as a part of the business solution. Say the client is operating the 3 different businesses. Each business you can take as one division. Say a client is into consulting and automobiles. Okay. Okay, consulting and automobiles, and you may take some textiles, etc. Say take example of client is operating these 2 different businesses, consulting business and automobiles. In that case, you can take consulting as one division and automobiles as one division. Okay, how many divisions you have to create? Consulting as one division, automobiles as one division. You may have 2 divisions as per your business, or else if not based on the businesses what you are operating, you can have a division with other representation. Maybe you are operating the business in across the globe. In that case, you can have APAC as a one division, EMEA as a one division. This is how that geographies wise you can have a separate divisions. Or else you are running the business in US. The East business operations you want to have as one division, West, North, South. That's how you can classify your business operations with the division concept. But you can take the division based on geographies or based on the type of businesses you are doing. But as per system, there is no separate application where you can track the division specific transaction. That is the reason division is not a mandatory. In most of the implementation, we don't use the division. When we are going to do the implementation for any client, ideally this is how we do the implementation. We'll have an enterprise to maintain the employees information with the concept called as, with the applications called as HCM. We'll have only one, and the primary ledger to record the transactions. Primary ledger level you can have GL and FA applications. How many primary ledger? One for one country. And you can have more than one also if the client wants to have more than one primary ledger in one country. They are said they are doing 2 different businesses. For 2 different businesses, they want to have a separate primary ledgers. We can have, but reality that is not a good practice. You can see in most of implementations only one for one country. And legal entities, how many registrations they have? Those many legal entities. So legal entities can be mapped at cash management applications level to manage the bank accounts with the ownership of that bank accounts. When you say legal entity, that is a ownership, a company, entity. those bank accounts also can be owned by that company only. That is the reason legal entity can be mapped at this level. And wherever you record the real business transactions to capture in the system, we create the business unit. Business unit always we create based on the number of branches, whatever you have in your business. And inventory organizations. So how many warehouses you have, those accordingly you can create. Inventory level, these are the applications. Business unit level, these are the applications. Now where you can create the financial reports, where you are creating the real business transaction at business unit level. Based on the business unit data only, you can create the financial reports. But we discussed in the P2P and O2C cycle, from all these applications, data will send to GL. From payable will send the data to GL, AR will send the data to GL, from FA will send the data to GL, from cash management will send the data to GL. Even we are recording the transactions business unit level, the place where we prepare the financial reports is GL only. Where we record the financial related transactions within the business unit level. But after creating the transaction, all the data will send to GL. Okay, all the data will send to GL. So GL level only you can prepare the financial report, but actual transactions will record at business unit level. Here, whatever we see, enterprise, division, primary ledger, legal entity, business unit, and inventory organization, these will create in the system by following the same hierarchy. Okay, under enterprise you can have a division. Let me take. Okay, under enterprise you can have a division. Under division you can have a legal entity. Under legal entity you can have a under primary ledger you can have a legal entity. Under legal entity you can have business unit. Under business unit you can have inventory organization. Okay, so this is as per system, as per our Fusion application. So if you are going to maintain all these in the system to manage your organization data as per Oracle Fusion applications, these definitions we call as enterprise structure. This is enterprise related, one company related information organization that we are going to maintain with a structure. Structure means top level enterprise, under the division, under divisions primary ledger, under primary ledger legal entity, under legal entities business unit, under business unit inventory organizations. So structured manner we are going to maintain. That is the reason this we call as enterprise structure. Okay, so this we call as enterprise structure as per Fusion applications. Okay, so with the help of enterprise, what do you mean by how you can create enterprise structure in Fusion application means? As per enterprise structure, first we'll create enterprise. Under that we can have a division. Under division we can have a primary ledger. Under primary ledger we can have legal entities. Under legal entities we can have business units. Under business units we can have a inventory organizations. What do you mean by enterprise? Enterprise is the one where we can maintain the employees information with the help of HCM. What do you mean by division? When you are operating your business, so based on the type of nature of businesses or vertical of businesses, you can say type of businesses, simply you can say based on the vertical of businesses you can have a divisions, or else where you are operating based on the geographies you can have a divisions. But divisions level you cannot record any transactions and no application can be mapped. Just for information purpose you can have a division. What do you mean by primary ledger? The primary ledger is the one which we can use to record the transactions across all the applications. Primary ledger level we can map GL and FA applications. For one country one primary ledger is required. What do you mean by legal entity? Registrations, whatever the registrations the entity has, the registrations we create in the system as a legal entity. Legal entity level we can map the cash management application. So legal entity we can use for legal reporting purpose to the government. And what do you mean by business unit? Wherever you are operating the business, the operating unit, wherever you are operating the business, the operating unit in the system will create as a business unit. Simple point is, in how many branches or in how many locations you are operating the business, each location or each branch you create in the system as a business unit. Business unit is the one where real business transactions can be recorded. So that business unit level we can map these applications. So within the API or any application, if you are going to record the transaction, those should be belongs to specific business unit. And what do you mean by inventory organizations? Okay, the warehouses, whatever we have in the business, each warehouse we have to create in the system as a inventory organization. Within the inventory organization only you can maintain the stock and you can perform the inventory related transactions. To maintain the inventory organization data, inventory transactions data, we use the application called as inventory applications. Okay, by using inventory application, we can create the inventory organizations and you can maintain the stock. So this we call as enterprise structure. Okay, division is not mandatory, it's a completely optional component. Okay, division is not mandatory. The enterprise, primary ledger, legal entity, business unit, inventory organization, these are mandatory when you do the implementation for any client. So this is how you can classify the data. Employees data separately as enterprise. Okay, registration data separately with the legal entity, business transaction data by separating with the business unit concept, stock or inventory related data with inventory organizations, and primary ledger to collect all the data from all the areas. We use the primary ledger. Division, there is no value addition. Even if you are going to have, now in most of the implementation we don't see division as a one of the component. Now just I prepared few slides. I'll just take you through those slides. This is what we discussed. The total organization data can be classified into these 4 parts. Employees data, where you can maintain the employee records and the payroll related transactions, the salary payments and all. And registration data means the company registration data and records for tax reporting. The business transaction means that could be purchase orders, invoices or payments, sales orders or billing or receipts. Warehouse or inventory data means stock and inventory transactions. Okay, so this is how you can have the same point we discussed already. The employee data we can maintain in the system with the concept called as enterprise, and enterprise registration data we can maintain in the system environment with the concept called as legal entity, and business transactions data we can maintain in the system with the business unit concept. Warehouse data you can maintain in the system with the concept called as inventory organization. Now let's see what is the enterprise structure as per Fusion. Okay, so this is a standard enterprise structure. Within a Fusion applications, this is the enterprise structure. Top level you can have enterprise where you can maintain the employee information. Under enterprise you can have a division. Division, how many divisions you can have totally that depends based on the vertical or geographies you can have a division. Under division will have a primary ledger. Under primary ledger will have a legal entities. Under legal entities we can have a business unit. Under business unit you can have a inventory organizations, but division is optional. Now I have a simple slide which talks about one client business. If you take example of ERP tree is operating the business in US and they are operating the business as a 2 divisions. This is how you have to create the enterprise structure for that client. So here first we have to create the enterprise. Okay, ERP tree enterprise. They have a 2 divisions. One is ERP tree consulting division, other one is ERP tree electronics division. So those 2 divisions they have in one country only. That is the reason for that one country, one primary ledger. ERP tree USA primary ledger. And say they have a separate registration. With one registration also they can run the business in one country. But simple example I taken, even business they are doing in USA. Okay, division wise they have a separate registration. So consulting they have one registration, so consulting one legal entity. For electronics they have a separate registration, so separate legal entity. So ERP tree consulting legal entity, ERP tree electronics legal entity. So with this consulting legal entity, with consulting business they are doing in 2 locations. One is New York, other one is Dallas. So the consulting operations they are doing in 2 locations. For the 2 locations, 2 business units. The electronics business they are operating in 2 locations. One is in Austin, other one is Los Angeles. 2 different business units. So New York business just they have a stores inventory. Since it's a consulting business, reality they don't need warehouse inventory. That is the reason just stores to maintain some stuff within their business operation stores. Here also stores only, but in the Austin electronics, that means they are maintaining the computers. They have one warehouse to maintain the computers. That is the reason for Austin business unit we have one warehouse, but Los Angeles they have 2 warehouses. One is computers, other one is mobiles. So this is how we have to create the enterprise structure when you do the implementation for the client who is operating the business in US and who has 2 different divisions. Division wise if they have a separate registration, this is how you have to create. Now I take another case where client is operating the business in, yeah please. Any question? Any question based on this slide? Now I'm taking other case. Client is operating the business in 4 countries. In that case, if they want to go with the division and other information, how that solution would looks like. So here I take in the case as client is operating the business in India, Singapore, France, and UK. So in that case, if they want to go with the division, they can go with the 2 different divisions. This India and Singapore falls under APAC division, and this France and UK EMEA division. They can have 2 different divisions based on the classifications of the countries. And for 4 countries, 4 primary ledgers. For 4 countries, 4 legal entities. See here, India legal entity, Singapore legal entity and all. In each country, how many branches they have accordingly? Business units. Say in India, they have 2 branches. One is in the Delhi, other one is in Hyderabad. So Delhi BU and Hyderabad BU. In the Delhi, what business they are doing? Computer sales. So computer warehouse they have, computers inventory. In Hyderabad, they are dealing with the mobiles inventory. In Singapore, in the one location only they are operating the business, so only one BU. In Singapore, what business they are doing? Say mobile sales, so for that mobile inventory. In Paris, they are into cars sales and the cars inventory. And in London, say they are into consulting services. When they are dealing with the consulting services, they can have a business unit, but they don't need any inventory organization, no inventory. They are dealing with the material or stock and all, then only they need inventory. So in the London, what business they are doing is, it is all about consulting services. When they are doing the consulting services, they don't need warehouse, right? That is the reason no inventory for London. For York BU, say they are into bike sales, etc. Accordingly, they can have inventory. This is how you can see the enterprise structure, including the division. Most of the implementations, we don't use the division. Division is not going to have a great value addition. So that is the reason if you see the same without division, this is how you can see. No division now. So we have enterprise. In how many countries they have that business? In 4 countries. For each country, separate primary ledger. In each country, they have a separate registration. One registration is enough in each country. Reality also you see the same. So 4 countries, 4 legal entities. In each country, in how many locations they are operating the business, accordingly business units and respectively respectively inventory organizations. So this is what you have to understand, how we have to create enterprise structure when you do the implementation for any client. Now, okay, any questions on these points, please? This is what we call as enterprise structure. When you do the implementation for any company, we have to create this in the system. In our classes, we'll see how to create all these from the scratch. Any questions on these points, please?
Is it same?
Are you asking the question or you are talking one? Please go on mute. Questions, please.
Can you listen to me?
Yeah, I can hear you, please.
So is it same for EBS as well, the structure?
EBS, there is some slight difference. I'll explain. Okay, maybe I'll explain that also I'll compare. There may be guys from the EBS, they have to understand. Yes, that also I'll cover. First, let's try to understand this as a standalone. That I'll compare.
Okay.
Also. Yeah. Any questions on this point, please? Please go on mute. I can hear some noise from you. Any questions from anyone, please? Okay, done. Now let's talk about our chart of accounts also, to add some additional points to that. So in the last session we discussed about chart of accounts. Okay, so as part of enterprise we'll have a primary ledger. Within the primary ledger we need chart of accounts. So reality will have a chart of accounts segments like 6, 7, 8, 9 like this. So reality, how we can have a segments. So we can have a segments like this. We'll have a segment called as company. We'll have a segment called as department. We'll have a segment called as account. We can have a segment like project. Okay. You can have a segment called as location if required. And you can have a segments in every chart of accounts. When you create, You can create up to 30, but minimum 2 are required. Generally, when you do the implementation for clients, so always we suggest to clients to have 2 buffer segments, additional segments. So those we call as future 1 and future 2. Okay. Always we suggest the client to have some additional segments. Say for example, now clients are going to use, okay, these 5 segments. In future, they need one more segment called as, they are into services, they want to capture service line. If they have only these 5 segments, in future they need one more segment called as service line, they cannot add it. The existing chart of accounts, if they add new segments, the existing data, everything will get disturbed. That is the reason what Oracle is recommending is, when you are creating the chart of accounts, how many segments client required, along with those segments, maintain future segments also, additional segments also, means buffer segments. In future they need new segment, simply they can convert this future one to the real segment name, they can start using that. Maybe after a few more years, if they need one more segment, this future two also they can convert. So that's how they can use it. This is how we have to plan for the chart of accounts. When you are creating the chart of account, simply we call as designing the chart of accounts. When you are designing the chart of accounts for your client as per the business reporting requirements, you should recommend the client to have a buffer segments. Buffer means additional segments which are required in the future. So this is how we suggest. Okay, this is how we suggest. So this is how we can create the chart of account for a few clients. What we do is, some client says I don't need 2 future segments. That case, just you can create segments like this. So maybe they may need location, or else simply they can have a segment called as intercompany. That means intercompany means if they have a 2 branches, sometimes there could be some transaction between those branches also. That means between the business units. So in those scenarios, you need a segment called as intercompany to track the transactions detail level. Okay, detail level. So this is how you can have a segments: company, department, account, project. Okay, intercompany, future 1, and if they want to have a future 2 also, they can have a future 2. So when you talk to the client will inform us exactly which data they want to capture. We have to tell them this is what we call a chart of accounts. Within the chart of accounts, what are the information you want to capture in each and every transaction, those we have to maintain as a segments. So in those scenarios, that's how you have to explain to the client. Within this chart of account, you should not have segments like supplier and customer. Those can be captured into respective applications. But still client says I need segment called as supplier and customer. Yes, we cannot do anything. Final decision should be taken by client only, since we are implementing for them. Ideally, as a consultant, we have to suggest you should not go with any suppliers and customers within the chart of accounts. If there is any special scenario, exceptional case, if that is required, then we have to accept. But finally, the final decision is taken care by client only. So this is how you can create. Here, company means already we discussed. Okay, the branches, how many branches we have, those many you will take as business units. The business units only you will take as a companies. Now, based on that point here, in some clients, what we do is, instead of taking this segment name as a company, the client says we want to see the name as a business unit. Okay, within the chart of accounts, you may have a segment name as a business unit instead of company. That is okay. Some clients will see that as a branch also. Okay, the branch only you are taking as a business unit only you are taking as branch is equal to company only. So this is how you can see. Okay, so for some clients they want to have a name as, okay, say operational area, means where they are operating the business, operational area. This is how they can have a segment name. But reality, that is our business unit. Okay, how they want to see the name, accordingly you can provide here. Okay, how they want to see here, accordingly they can provide. Now I'll take the simple example. Okay, simple example. So a client is running the business in India, only in one location in Hyderabad. Only in one location. Only one registration they have. Now how many business units you have to create? Only one business unit. Okay, only one business unit. How many legal entities? Only one legal entity. They have only one legal entity. They are running the business in only one location. So in that case, this you can take as a legal entity also. When your number of legal entities are equal to number of business units, then you can take segment name as a legal entity also. You have only one legal entity, you have only one business unit. So you can record the transactions with the business unit name or legal entity name, both are same. Legal entity is equal to business unit is equal to the branch where you are operating the business. Everything is one only. In that case, you can have a segment name as a legal entity also. So if you are recording the transaction with the legal entity, that means you are recording the transactions for Hyderabad location only. Hyderabad business unit. This is how you can have a segment name as a legal entity also. Okay. So this is how you can have a separate. In some businesses, you can see the scenarios like, say the client has a business in India, only they have one legal. For India business, they say they have two legal entities. Okay, LE1 and LE2. LE1 and LE2. Say with LE1 and LE2. With legal entity 1, they are running the business in 5 locations. With the legal entity with the registration 2, they are running the business in 5 locations. That means in 10 locations they are running the business. We have to create 10 business units, 10 BUs. Please go on mute. If you have any questions, you can ask after. Let me explain this simple point. Somebody unmuted. Okay, they are running the business in India. They might be running 2 different businesses. For each business, separate registrations they have. The legal entity 1, they are running the business in 5 locations, 5 branches we have. With this legal entity 2 registration, they have business in 5 locations, total 10 business units. In these scenarios, they can have segments like legal entity in the chart of accounts. The other one is company. So when they are going to record the transactions, they can select the transactions belongs to LE1 or LE2. Then accordingly they can select which company, which business unit they can select. This is how they can have. But reality, they no need to track legal entity here. Whenever you select the company, every company will be associated with the legal entity. Every business unit will be associated with the legal entity. That's how system can track. If you record the transaction with the business unit 1, that is belongs to which legal entity, system will track. That you will see in the system. Okay. The mapping is available in the system. If any transaction you are recording with a specific business unit, every business unit is belongs to specific legal entity. That is the reason you don't need to track legal entities separately when you are tracking the companies. So that is the reason ideally this is not required, but still some client says, yes, we want to track. We cannot stop them. So these are the points we have to understand. Any questions on this, please? One very important point, when you design the chart of accounts with the 5 segments or 6 or 7, but you should suggest the future segments. That's very, very important. In future, after 2 or 3 or 4 years, if there is any expansion in the business, okay, if they expand the business or if they are going to acquire other companies, so those business transactions also, if they want to track in the system, if you don't have a future segments, there won't be any scope of adding new segments. System will allow you to add the segments, but you should not add. If you add, there will be lot many data inconsistency issues. Oracle strongly recommends don't add it. If you want to add new segments, you should have a future segments. Future segments you can convert into real segments, whatever you require. If you don't have a future segments, if you want to add new segments, you have to go with the separate project called as redesigning the chart of accounts. Again, that is a big task. That is the reason as a best practice, you have to have a future segments in our chart of accounts. And one more very important point is, when you create the chart of accounts, you have to choose one segment as a primary segment. Okay, you have to choose one segment as a primary. Always company you treat as a primary segment. That means which segment level you want to balance each and every transactions. Okay, which segment level you want to balance each and every transaction. That means which segment wise you want to record the business transaction, which segment wise you want to do the reporting whenever you need the reporting. So from the chart of accounts, one segment you have to finalize as a primary segment to balance that segment related transactions. What does it mean by balancing and all? We'll see when you record the transaction. For now, simple point, you can take one segment you have to choose as a balancing segment. One segment you have to choose as a balancing segment, or you can say primary segment. Always company is the primary. Okay. Always we record the transaction belongs to which company. Within the company, which department, which account, which project, etc. If you want to track any other details, those you can select. But very primary element is the transaction belongs to which company. So that is the one segment you have to finalize as a primary segment. Any question? Please go on mute. Please don't unmute when you don't have any questions. If you have any questions, please, you can unmute and you can raise your questions. Okay. So these are the points we have to understand. And one more very important point is when you are going to create the chart of accounts for any client, what are the best practices we have to follow? Okay. What are the best practices we have to follow? What key points we have to remember when you are creating the chart of accounts? We'll see. Right. When you create the chart of accounts, COA. We use simple term as designing. When you are designing the chart of accounts for any company, okay, which best practices we have to follow, we should have it. So within the chart of accounts, you should have one balancing segment. That means one primary segment to record the transaction. Okay. So one balancing segment. So as per Oracle, you can have more than one balancing segment also. So one primary balancing segment. Okay, if you take this chart of accounts, here company you should use as a primary. Okay, so you have to select one segment as a primary segment to balance your transaction, to record what segment level you want to record all the transactions. You should choose one segment as a primary. And you should have a future segments within your chart of accounts. You should suggest future segments to the client as a best practice. Okay, future segments. To support your reporting requirements, you should maintain parent and child relationship for the segment values. Parent and child relationship for the segments. Say for example, you are going to create the accounts. When you are going to create the accounts, for all the accounts, expenses, you can have one parent account. All the revenue accounts, you can have a parent account. This is how you can have a parent account, so that when you are going to produce the reports, instead of selecting all the accounts, if you select parent, it will display the balances. To meet our reporting requirements or to simplify your reporting process, okay, you have to have a parent and child relation. We have a separate concept. In that concept, you will come to know how to maintain that parent and child relationship. That we'll see in the system. As of now, you can take as a point. Whatever we are discussing now, which are not very clear for us in this stage, for everything we have a detailed discussions and sessions on those. Okay, we are just discussing. We are not doing anything. Just when we are discussing, just try to understand these points. Anyway, these will come to know more detailed level when we are working on the relevant concept. Okay, it's all about just introduction to those points. Reality we'll see later. So we should maintain within the chart of accounts, okay, within these segments, what are the segment values we are going to maintain child and parent and child relationship to facilitate the best reporting practices. And already we discussed one point, the branches, based on the branches will create business unit, based on business units will create the companies. That means the number of business units should be equal to your number of companies. The number of BUs should be equal to number of companies, whatever you create in your chart of accounts. Okay, that means the business unit should be equal to your number of companies. Before that, the business units on what base we finalize based on the branches. Okay, and other point already we discussed, suppliers, customers, and all don't take in the chart of accounts. Okay. Say, don't create segments in chart of accounts, okay, to capture, okay, to capture specific application data. Means supplier means specific application, maybe payables or payables and purchasing. Okay, don't create segments in chart of accounts to capture specific application data. If you are creating one segment in the chart of account, the segment should be useful in the many applications. That is a very important point. Okay, when you are creating the chart of accounts, always you have to create based on the client reporting requirements. The chart of account what you create, that should be as per reporting requirements of the client. Okay, so on what base client wants to prepare the reports, accordingly you have to create the chart of accounts. Okay, these are the key points you have to understand. We'll add any other points if applicable based on the further discussions. For now, these are the few points you have to understand. When you are creating the chart of accounts, one segment you have to choose as a primary balancing, so that at segment level you will be able to produce the reports. Of course, other segments also will support for the reporting. And make sure that you have a future segments in the chart of accounts. If you don't suggest the future segments to the client in the chart of accounts, in future if client require new segments in the chart of accounts, easily you cannot add. If you add, that will create many issues. That is the reason always suggest future segments. And parent and child relationship. Say you are going to create your company's departments and accounts. Between those companies departments accounts, create parent and child relation. This we'll see in our classes when you are working on the system, how to create this. We will see, we'll understand how that can be useful. When you are working on the reporting, you can understand. The number of business units, okay, should be equal to number of companies. This is the best practice which we have to follow. Okay, how many business units we are going to create in the system. Okay, for each business unit you have to create the separate company, so that when you are recording the transactions, everything can be managed with us as a smooth transactions. Otherwise there will be challenges. Don't create segments in the chart of account to capture specific application data. If you are creating one segment, the segment is going to help to capture the data for particular applications only. That don't take as a segment into chart of account. If you are taking the company, that would be useful in all the applications. If you take the department, it will be useful in all. That means whatever you are taking as a segment, that should be useful in the many applications. Then only you take that as a segment into chart of accounts. What are the chart of accounts you are creating, that should meet the client reporting requirements. Okay, so as per the reporting, which data we want to capture in each and every transaction, so those only you have to take as a segments into chart of accounts. So these are the points we have to understand when you talk about chart of accounts. And this is all about enterprise structure, what we have to understand. Okay, if you are very clear about P2P cycle and O2C cycle and chart of accounts and enterprise structure, understanding remaining things will become very, very easy throughout our course. Any questions on this chart of accounts or enterprise structure, please? And one more point, we're done for today. If you have any questions, you can stay back or else you can drop from the meeting. Okay, we're done for today. Any questions from anyone, please?
Yeah, Lakshman, I think you may show like later about every transaction some examples, but
Yes.
can we set up like that, like some chart of accounts like as optional and some are like mandatory?
What you said? What mandated optional? Are you talking about segments?
Yeah.
Yes, you can set. You can set.
When they're doing the data entry or transactions, real-time transactions,
Yes.
so every transaction should put like all the attributes of.
Correct. I'll show you. See, simple. Instead of setting as mandated optional, reality what we do is, say for example, you take this case. I given segment called as project. Okay. Say you are spending some expense. The expense may not belongs to project. But if project related expense, the expenses belongs to which company, which department, what expense, and which belongs to which project will specify. If it is not belongs to any project, ideally we use the dummy value. This is how we'll use the default values in the system. That means the transaction will not belongs to any project. That is how you can manage. You can put some default values wherever the transaction is not related to the segment related information. Or else you can make as a optional also, as we'll see in our classes. Possible, that is possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions from anyone, please?
Yeah, Lakshman, as you were out, so as a best practice, we should have one primary balancing segment. But why it's combined only?
Sorry?
Yeah, so you told we should have one primary balancing segment, right? And we are considering company as that, right? So why? Why not another segment we are considering as a balancing segment?
Okay, when we create the transaction, I'll explain you this point. We'll create first transaction. At the time you can ask this question. Anyway, I'm going to explain. Now I can explain, but it will be difficult for at least few people to understand. I don't want to create confusion. Hold that point, I'll explain. Okay, whatever we are discussing now, for everything I'm going to show in the system, I'm going to, whenever we record the first transaction itself, I'll talk about this point. Okay, if you have more than one, what is the challenge? Yeah, if you have more than one, what is the challenge? I'll show you in the system also, so that it would be clear. Many points may not get clarity in this stage. Reason, just theoretically we are discussing. These are all points related to system also at a time, right? That is the reason when you see the same in the system also, it will be, you'll have a complete understanding. Okay, the gaps will be filled when you work on.
So Lakshman, just one question.
Please.
The chart of accounts are typically a code combination for accounting, right?
Correct. Code combination of company, department, account, what are the segments with
right.
The code combination. Correct.
It's like GL code combination.
Yes. If you are already aware of it, yes, that is true. Yeah. Correct. GL code combination.
Lakshman, one quick question. So the business unit we are saying as part of chart segment, chart of accounts segment, and reporting business unit. Is there a difference, or like what is this? Like previously we were discussing, like, business units we will create for reporting needs. For example, a branch wise, something like that, right? So
correct.
Right now, yeah. So what is the difference between these two business units? Like
which two business units?
So chart segment, the company, instead of company, we are creating
chart. I think you are referring some different application, not Fusion. Okay, maybe PeopleSoft.
Okay.
Are you different PeopleSoft chart segments?
So yeah. So let's keep. Of course, I am from PeopleSoft. But we were talking previously for reporting purposes. For each branch, we will create, like, for example.
Both are same. I got it. Both are same. Both are same. You are creating the business unit, okay, to record the transactions and to produce the reports based on the transactions. Both are same.
Okay. So my question was, company level, we are creating like a chart field segment, right?
No, here chart field segment we don't call, chart of account segment we call. The terminal it's specific to PeopleSoft, but here chart of account segment.
Okay, so for company we are creating
chart
here.
Field, right? So call it a chart field.
Yeah,
we call it chart
fields.
Yes.
Chart of it. So
please.
So both are same business unit. The business unit we are creating for the transactions and reporting purposes at the branch level, and the chart of account segment for a company we are creating business unit. It's both are same. We will just use at that level.
Both are same. The business unit only you are mapping as a companies into chart of accounts. Both are same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. So once we get into the system, many things will be clear. Whatever we are discussing here, definitely there will be confusion since we not yet completed. Okay, so just its introduction. So Just whatever we can understand, those we can understand here. Once we see in the system, we'll get complete meaning of each and everything. We need proof of each and every activity or transactions.
And even like just a terminology, the primary ledger, subledger, subsystem, the subsystem and subledgers are almost same. Those
No.
Same or
Subsystem we don't call anything here. Okay. Subledgers.
subledger.
Yeah, subledger.
Yeah.
Here, we have a cycle, right? P2P and O2C cycles. 1 second. So these are the two cycles, P2P and O2C. Please go on mute. So other than GL, all the applications we call as subledger applications. Okay, GL is a general ledger. Why we are calling these all are subledger applications? So in AP data will come to GL, FA data will come to GL, PO data will come here, CM it will come, inventory it will come here, it will come from all the application data will come to GL. Compared to GL, these all are subparts only. That is the reason these all applications we call as subledger applications other than GL. Within the GL, whatever the ledger we are creating to record the transactions across all the applications, that is the primary ledger. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I will go through again one more time, but can a company will have like only one calendar which follows the GL calendar?
Yes.
They don't need like the separate.
Only one.
Only one. Okay.
Only one company can have only one calendar through primary ledger. Okay, directly we cannot associate any calendar to company. We associate primary ledger to company. That's how the company will have access to calendar.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Fine. Okay.
Lakshman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not receiving recorded sessions.
You are not receiving record. Who is speaking? You are in touch with whom from the team?
Yes.
No. You are in touch with whom? Who is the team member name?
Saida.
Saida. Okay. I'll just talk to you. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I have your previous recorded videos, but I'm not receiving these sessions which I'm attending.
You can ask Saida, he will share. Okay, but till yesterday, all the videos we upload in the YouTube, the same links we shared. Today, I'm going to place in the Google Drive and will provide the drive access to all the participants.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Fine. Thanks. Okay. In tomorrow's session, just we'll see in the next session. Today is Friday, right? So next session would be on Monday. Our classes from Monday to Friday. So we'll connect on Monday and we'll proceed. On Monday session, just we'll go with a comparison also. Okay, the same how we have in EBS. Okay, just we'll compare. Won't take much time. After comparing, just we can start with the system in the next session.
Do we have a Monday class since in US it's a long weekend? Just in case.
So we'll see that how many participants we have from US. We'll check that. Based on that, but as of now, you can take a note as we'll have a session on Monday.
Yeah, sure.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, that's all for today. We'll connect in the next session on Monday. Thank you all. Have a good day and good night.